Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the country, or whether you're watching us live or on replay. It's much better live. And we're also broadcasting on a couple of YouTube channels at the same time, and I think LinkedIn and a few other things. One of the YouTube channels, I think, has got a problem with what's known as the RTMP source at the moment. Just had a message from one of the other guests on here saying it's not going on one of the channels. We will actually make sure that the replay goes out on that as well. We have two YouTube channels, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But for now, let's swap over to our guests and bring them in. We'll start off with Stephen. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Hi, Ian. There we are. I managed to hit the mute button twice. I unmuted myself and then stopped myself from talking.
I'm sort of like, did he just mute himself? Oh dear. yeah. I think that you messaged me just before. I think there's a thing called an RTMP source, and you know the history of that particular channel. I think there might be an issue with that, so we'll look at that and get that fixed. The next person coming along is Rob Jones, and there he is. Hello, Rob.
Me. Hi, Ian. Good to see you again.
Yes, thank you for joining. And down the list in order as well is Maria. Hello, Maria. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm good. And you?
I'm good. Very firmly based in Ohio. We've established that now. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, my fellow American, actually. Yeah, it's good.
There you go.
See, I've learned the phrases and everything. You know, I had to do the prejudice other kind of citizen. And I suppose another fellow American, which is Montana. Oh, hang on. Sorry, Montana. Yes, I just managed to hit your button in time.
I'm just hoping that Robert and Maria get out of jail soon. So.
Yes, yeah, still there. I mean, still got that white wall. I hope for good behaviour they're let out soon because you know it's a shame to happen there. Well, that's what happens if you're late with sending an email. You get sent to jail. I mean, we're a very strict company. We have rules about these things. So.
Mail jail is what they've called it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also it's funny because despite the fact that there are actually 3 Americans here, there are 3 British accents as well. Only 5 guests. Isn't that weird, huh? That's a weird geography lesson for people. Okay, so Stephen, you've given me some slides. I kind of think to provoke the conversation as much as anything. For those of you that are new to this, and that's going to be a lot of people, many people, in fact, I think I'll ask Stephen because it's kind of his initiative. What is it that we're doing here on the Analytics Coffee Club, which is really what we're talking about? In fact, I'm going to share our wonderful. Have I got an overlay? Let's see if Martha has done her job.
Well, basically, the concept behind this is, you know, we're in a really privileged position. We get to talk to lots of different companies about what they're doing, and lots of different people, different ideas, and you know, we find that quite often there's interesting conversations and topics that people want to have a chat about. And we thought, you know what, it'd be great to have like this video blog podcast type chance to discuss through different topics. And this week, obviously, we want to talk about AI and analytics. I think next week we're going to be doing a session that's really aimed for introducing people to BI. So if you've got new members of your team come in, then you know that's really kind of just going through basic terminology and different things that are mentioned. So a real chance just to engage with people on topics that are of interest. And we always want to hear from you guys what you're interested in having a look at. In fact, I was just speaking to somebody who joined us last week, and they said, one of the things that we're hearing a lot about at the moment is data sovereignty. There's a big push around that within Europe at the moment. So can we have a chat about that at some point? I was like, well, yeah, great. We're in touch with lots of different people, and that sounds like a really good topic idea. So the idea is every Thursday, a chance to grab a coffee. From a professional point of view, it's great for continual development. It's great for picking up on different trends and things that we don't always get a chance to do on a day-to-day basis. But equally, have something that's going to hopefully help you with what you do every day and find ideas, things that you want to look at doing and implementing, and how you can get more out of your BI. And if that's just generally, if you're using Yellowfin, great. There's going to be a few more little extra bits in there, but it's not just for people who are using Yellowfin. There's this chance to pick up on general trends and topics.
Yeah. And in fact, let me just put this view back up. There you go. We see us all again. I was trying to decide which view looked the best, and I think the slides look good, but I've got the screen sharing down. It's all very complex stuff, I'm like driving like an airline pilot, multitasking, and people are messaging me on Teams, and I've muted them, which is the best way of dealing with Teams messages I found. Yeah, it's always good. Yeah, so I mean, our little slide there said AI in analytics. I mean, is that kind of? I think you mentioned data sovereignty, and really, it's weird because I think that obviously in my other role, I work with Rad Studio and Embarcadero and Delphi and developers, and I would say that I get two types of emails. Number one is about AI, and it's usually, look at what I've created with AI. It's really cool. And actually, there are a lot of very cool projects there, which is great. But the other half of the emails are people saying, how do I create an SBOM, software bill of materials? How do I deal with this Computer Resilience Act? What do I do about the fact that I'm selling, my services to Europeans, and sometime in 2026, there's going to be a bunch of laws about where I keep my data. In fact, I noticed Claude, who are the big AI provider, I think they're really establishing themselves as one of the big three, I think, maybe big four. They just announced yesterday, first of all, they've kind of caved and they've doubled their allowances for the rates now. So they've finally decided you could use our product more, and we won't cut you off from using it, which is the weirdest product ever. But the other thing that was buried in their little announcement was talking about the choice of data sovereignty for your AI. So with Claude, people that are Europeans, their data that Claude is using to make the decisions. So when you say, for example, in Claude, upload this file, let's upload our slides, for example, about the coffee club. Claude will now, if I understand correctly, will now take those slides that I'm uploading and store them in a location relative to me. So as an American, which is what I am, despite the accent, it would store it in North America. I think they've got a partnership with Amazon. There's a lot in their release about partnering with SpaceX, amongst other things. But if you're in Europe, they will actually only store your data in Europe. I don't know what they do with the UK. I don't know whether Stephen or Rob know what, because you're not really in Europe anymore, right? I mean, you're physically, but technically you're not in the EU. I mean, how does that work? Are there laws for Europeans that are different to British? Because I mean, as a Brit, I know that when Brexit happened, the laws that were in place at the time, the European laws that were in place at the time, were enshrined in British law. So, Data Protection Act and the GDPR is all enshrined. But how does it work for you with data? Do you even know? I mean, has it got to be stored in a British location, or is Europe okay? Like, oh, we're European for this, Or do you not know? I mean, it's possible.
I'm not sure, actually. The last time I looked at it was a few years ago, when I was on the other side of the fence, working for a company which had to look after its data. At that point, essentially, the EU and the UK were trusting each other to have equivalent laws, and as you say, the legislation was fully aligned, so it didn't really make a lot of difference where you put it, either the UK or Europe. And with the States, as long as you went through all of the right processes, there were, again...
we don't care as long as it's America first. So as long as our data is in America, we're good to go. It's like...
and I think the main thing for a lot of companies, Yellowfin does a lot of work with ISVs, independent software vendors. And for a lot of those companies, obviously their primary goal is to have it in country or have it in-house. And one of the big things with BI is around data sovereignty. Is do you have stuff locally in the country? Because if everything is being run and controlled by an external country, then you might be outside of the bounds of what you want to do. That's why there's been a big push to kind of new versions of Office that are not Microsoft owned, but in some of the Scandinavian countries especially. And you know, one of the things with Yellowfin is it's, you know, you can host it, you can put it on prem, you can be fully in control of where that data is residing and processing. So it kind of works quite well for that. But I think that's probably a topic we'll get back to on another day. Definitely one that will be quite interesting one to look at. But I think going back to one of the comments you made earlier, Ian, is about when it comes to AI and data, you know, a lot of these legislations actually have a major impact on what people are trying to do. You mentioned DORA, which is the Digital Operations Resilience Act. Kind of the main focus behind that is about making sure your software is secure, resilient, auditable, which is one of the key things, recoverable and predictable. And to make sure it's auditable, you want to know who's seeing what, where, and when, and who's accessed your data. Now, when it comes to using AI and you want people to be able to ask questions and have something processed, you not only need to be able to track who's asked to see what, where, and when, but also be keeping track of that, but also make sure the security is still in place around that as well. When you start providing the chance for people to ask a general question, should they have the right to ask that question? How are you actually protecting the output from the query that may be generated from that? And that's where the whole security and governance layer that is really, really strong within Yellowfin comes into play. And we'll come back to that in a moment. The other major acts are around GDPR, which has been around for a while now. That, again, is in parallel between Europe and the UK. That basically uncovers personal data. And the core principle behind that is privacy by design. You want to make sure that as you build things, security is built in from the start. It's not an afterthought. And you're controlling who has the rights to see what and where. And one of the biggest things that you can do there is making sure you've got role-based authentication in play. So you can ensure that you can say, right, well, these roles can see this. Those roles can see this. And which kind of gives you the chance to be flexible. You get small companies that will have Susan in accounts who used to work in HR, so actually does 2 roles in a company, which is quite unique to what she does. And in small companies, you get a lot of those different types of people working that kind of way. So having the right roles and responsibilities set up is a big thing, and that's something Yellowfin does very, very well with the view that we have. Other option, NISC 2 is one of the other ones that's coming around. This is one that's actually getting quite a bit of interest from people, because not necessarily because it's basically around cybersecurity measures and complying with those. But one of the things that's really interesting behind that is there's a big shift towards personal responsibility and liability. So
that's a big thing as well, because the fines are eye-watering as well.
Yeah, I think
say, the company can afford $10,000 per incidence, but there's a famous scene in Silicon Valley where they buy a chat company as a hostile takeover, and they're happy because the guys have accidentally infringed data protection for children, and it's a bit of a kind of tasteless scene, but actually quite funny, because every time they get a new chat message, a bell goes off in the office, and it's like, every time that bell goes off, that's $10,000, but that's really what you're looking at. Now, that's fine if you're a multi-billion-dollar company. Perhaps you can afford, fines of $1 million, $2 million. I mean, afford, at least not go bust. But if it's you, Stephen Ball, or Maria, or Montana, or Rob, or me, which I'm definitely hoping it's not, $10,000, 20, 30, 50, 100. No, that's a life-changing mistake to make. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely couldn't afford to, open my wallet and pull out 100,000 and go, here, yeah, sorry about that, I made a mistake. And NIST 2 is yeah, it's a very explicitly trying to marshal Silicon Valley, which is really just a generic term for, you know, industry leaders in IT, trying to marshal them towards actually taking responsibility, because they've got to the stage where actually corporate responsibility really boils down to them saying, well, we'll pay the fine, you know, and we won't do it again.
Mhm. Yeah, and a lot of this behind this too as well is about logging usage of reports and data and exports. And you know, one of the things that scares the hell out of me when we're looking at the whole data security landscape is data going outside of controlled governed areas. When you've got your data in your database, you've got secure encryption on your database. You know, you've got to have authentication to log in to be able to view it. You want to be able to control who can see what data as well, which when you've got a tool like Yellowfin with the access control that you can put onto the view, which is where all the access to the data comes through, it is amazing. But as soon as you start exporting into Excel or PowerPoint and sharing things around on email, you've got data outside of a controlled governed area. And that's where a huge risk factor comes in. And to me, that is just, I don't want to be getting into that realms, which is why having things like presents and stories within Yellowfin is just such a great place to have our data.
Let's try a little thought experiment here, or a little game, okay? And I won't ask you to give me details, but let all of us here have worked, you know, in offices and things like that. What I want you to do is put your hand up if at some point someone has shared a document with you that you probably shouldn't have got, or you've managed to be able to view a document and go, oh, I don't know whether I should be able to see this, and you're not quite sure. Put your hand up if that's happened to you in an office environment. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the point, is that and yet I'm guarantee the organization that happened to, and we're not going to let you confess who it is because, you know, don't want to get in trouble, but all of you who've had that experience, I guarantee that company actually believed they were controlling who was receiving the data. They had Google Office, or they had Microsoft Office, or they had SharePoint, or they had, you know, G Drive settings. They had, as soon as if you've ever been unlucky to be fired or you've left a company, one thing that you see people complain about all the time on Reddit and various other groups is, oh, they fired me and they immediately cut off my email, which, yeah, you totally get why they would do that, right? Because especially if you're disgruntled, what's the first thing you're going to do? I've just been fired, and you're going to email everybody you can, so you can, you know, if you're reckless, because you're bound to get sued. But that's why they would do it. It's cut off your access, so you can't access any data. But the reality is that if you're relying on things like G Drive, you're relying on Microsoft Office SharePoint restrictions and things like that, all of us here, 5 of us, 100% fail rate of that kind of governance, which is what, and I know this sounds like a massive plug, but unfortunately it is a real good feature. That's what Yellowfin is designed to stop, is to say, okay, you cannot take that data and embed it in somewhere unless you're allowed to do that. And you do not get the opportunity. Now, people can get the permissions wrong. You know, human error is human error. At the end of the day, in theory, they can accidentally grant you more access than they should. But you should not be able to accidentally open a report that you shouldn't be allowed to see unless someone's made a mistake up the line. It's going to, you know, human error happens. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, absolutely. And I think the key takeaway from this introduction into, because I want to kind of get into the AI part, really.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the biggest
secure by design, appropriate access. You know, you need to have that as a fundamental in play. And I know we've got maybe. Are you able to pull up slide 6 that we've got on the deck?
Well, I'm being asked to actually do proper.
I know. Yeah. It's just I just want to. Sometimes a picture paints 1,000 words, and we've got a diagram that just kind of overviews how Yellowfin lays out.
Written about that.
Access. Yeah. And the cool thing that we do, you know, just summing up everything we've spoken about so far, when you're coming to do AI, you want to make sure that you've got something like the Yellowfin view in play here, because all the dashboards, the stories, the presents, you know, having a look at stuff on your timeline, you all want that coming through a secure governed layer into your database. And that view does all the auditability, all the stuff that we've been speaking about with NIST and DORA and the likes. Because everything is going through that view, it's all tracked. We know who's seen what, where, and when. And the view also then ensures that row level protection of the data. So, the classic example is retail. You might have a store manager who can see their store. You might have an area manager who can see their areas. And then you might have a head office team who want to see everything. And being able to filter the records at the view level means that you can ensure that governance is in play. Now, when it comes to the AI side of things, we've got natural language query where you can literally create a question and ask it of the data, but that goes through the view. So the result that works back through is fully tracked, it's fully audited, it's fully managed, and that gateway in from the AI is a really essential part to make sure that you can do this in a controlled way. Because then that frees up the business to actually get on with what the business should be doing, rather than worrying about adding AI and then going, right, how do I control this wild, wild west to where anybody can ask any question? And we need to try and keep a handle on it.
Yeah, I think that AI is one of the provocations, I think, for people to worry about or suddenly start thinking about data a little bit more, because it's a bit of a black box, isn't it? Like, I mean, I know, I'm a software developer, so I understand how LLMs work, and if you believe that it's actual intelligence, then you're wrong. It's not what it is. But the weirdest thing is, when you start asking it questions like in the Yellowfin NLQ, the natural language query, where you're typing in, tell me about what happened in Chelsea, in London or something like that. You can do things like accidentally misspell Chelsea, and it knows. It's not like a error correcting spell checker or something like that where it underlines it. It goes, I bet you meant that, and it doesn't say, did you mean Chelsea? It actually, because you got the H round the wrong way or something like that, it actually goes, I bet they meant Chelsea. I'll give you the details for it, which is great. But at the same time, all of that cleverness, even as a software developer who actually works on systems that have got AI built in, I don't understand how it does it sometimes. I know it tokenizes it, and the tokens then allow for errors to creep in because it's reducing a long word down to a few syllables, and that's oversimplifying it. Even so, if I don't understand how it works, I don't understand what it's doing with the data in the background as well. And that's why you need somebody you trust who's providing that AI and maintaining your data. And I think if you're relying on spreadsheets and then some kind of third-party solution and saying, I'm going to give it access to my massive MySQL database or my big SQL Server database, and I'll just fire the AI at it and just let the AI work it out for itself. Where's your governance there? Where's your control? Where's the kind of compartmentalization of what you can and can't do? And the answer is you should be in Yellowfin. I think
you're
power to make sure it's in the right direction. If you're going to have your child learn to cook with you, you don't just give it a knife and a recipe book and say, go and cut up the apples, do you? I mean, you can, but you'd be a bit reckless because you'd expect your child to come, I made a mistake, something like that, and got a finger missing. And it's the same thing with the AI and the data. You don't expect someone to just go, oh, I'll use Claude to query my data, and then I have the same kind of control and governance that you have in something like Yellowfin that's actually going to manage that part of the conversation for you.
But I think you raise a very interesting topic point, and I think it's one that Rob knows an awful lot about. So I'm going to let him kind of touch into that because he's had some real world experience working on there, but specifically around kind of preparing the data and getting it ready to be used with AI, and also some of the tips and tricks that we use around reducing the tokens and the cost of sending information out, especially kind of with lookup values and that kind of side of things. So Rob, do you want to kind of touch into that area?
Yeah, thanks, Dean. So, I mean, at the end of the day, preparing the data for use with AI, there are some specifics around how you tell the AI about the structure of your data. That Yellowfin has a way of doing that. It's the information that gets passed up to the AI when you ask a question. But the actual data itself, there's nothing special about it. You're organizing it in the same way, pretty much today anyway, that you would if you wanted a person to be able to write queries against it. So you need to organize it. The usual rules apply. If you sort your data out, get it nice and clean, make sure that what the data says is true, because that's really important. So organize it so that it's you're actually able to answer the questions that you want to answer. So one of the interesting questions is, with any kind of BI, how much work should you do up front on getting the data into good shape before you start asking questions? There's no single right answer to that question. Data, you need to understand how good your data is, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And the same is true with AI, because at this point anyway, for the most part, what we're doing with AI is we're asking it for help with asking the questions. Where there are some parts of Yellowfin where we're asking it to comment on generally on summary statistics rather than the data itself at this point. But for I think the really clever bit is using AI to help you to ask the question. So you've got an idea of what you want to ask. You can use enter it in natural language query, as we say. So ask the question as you would ask another person, and the AI is getting very good at translating that into currently a Yellowfin internal syntax, which Yellowfin will then turn into SQL, and it's really clever. I mean, I'm frequently impressed at the kind of SQL that ends up getting generated as that. So as I said, the AI doesn't generate it directly; it's Yellowfin generating the SQL, but the AI has translated your free-form question into a structured grammar, syntax that Yellowfin defines, which we can then straightforwardly translate into SQL. And it does things like make creative use of calculated fields and clever looking case statements. And one of the great things is you can open up the SQL and have a good look at it. And if you want to know what the AI, what's being generated by the AI, you can, and you can see exactly what's being asked, and it's quite illuminating. And it can change the way that you write your own queries. So if you don't want to use the AI every time, you think, great, that's a really good technique, I'll use that next time I'm writing a report from scratch. But you can also, I think, once you've seen what the AI can do, it's a great way to start with building content. You say, right, I know what I want. Do I want to go and build it all by dragging all the columns and you're creating all the calculated fields and applying all the formatting, that stuff? Well, you certainly can. That's the way we've always done it. But now I would argue a really good way to start is to ask the question and have the AI generate a first cut report, which you can then go on and refine. Either by asking follow-up questions, saying, "Oh, could you just change the color of that, or could you add another measure for me?" And the AI will do a lot of that, or opening up the report and editing it directly and changing it. So that's all great stuff. We touched a bit about the governance though, and there's an important stage. So before you can ask AI to help you with writing the questions, as Stephen touched on, you need to get define a Yellowfin view. And one of the things in that a Yellowfin view is the metadata describing the structure of the data underneath. The easiest structure to work with is something like we call a star schema, and we'll be talking more about that next week in the introduction to BI for beginners and so on. But it's a way of organizing the data where essentially you have a central fact table, a table with the facts about your business. I made a sale, and then you surround that with a bunch of dimension tables, which are the things you want to analyze your sales by. So I don't know, think retail. My background's retail, so I made a sale. What do I want to know? I want to know where I sold it, what shop was it in. I might want to know who I sold it to, a customer ID of some sort. I probably want to know when I sold it, what time of day, what day of the week, all that kind of stuff. And each of those sort of things you want to analyze by goes into a dimension table around the side. So you do all of that in the Yellowfin view, tell Yellowfin how those tables join together. That's a given. The next thing you can do then is to you tell Yellowfin which of those dimensions it should tell the AI about. So the beauty of that is that you can have dimensions which are, you can think of them as secret dimensions, and they might be secret. They might be things that you really from the AI.
Very Star Trek. A secret dimension. I like it.
Yeah, that's perhaps a bit more secret than I meant. But, it might be that there's some dimension of the problem that you just don't really want to. More likely, it's something that's a bit complicated, and you don't want your business users to have to worry about how to interpret it and how to use it. So you think, well, I just won't complicate the model that they work with, and you can just have a subset of the dimensions that are in your view. And there's a setting where you go and say, right, I want these dimensions to be available, these measures. So I might have pound sales or dollar sales, unit sales, volume sales, but maybe you've probably got more complex measures which you perhaps don't want to include in the view because it's or don't want to include in AI's view because they're just a bit complicated to understand, and there's and it makes it more difficult for it to make the right selections when it's coming up with it. So you can have first. I think the key thing is iteration. You get it out. You have a first go. You can explore it, and none of these things need to be set in stone. Having played with the model, asked it some questions, see whether it's giving you the sorts of answers that you and your business users want. You can then go back and change it and extend it. Add some of those extra dimensions in. They may not even be in the data yet, but you can expand the model, add some more data into your database, define it in the view, add it to the metadata shared with the AI, and away you go. It'll start adding that into the questions it asks. That iteration is a core part of BI generally, but it's just as applicable in the new world where we're using AI to help us.
I think you're underestimating the other aspect of it, which is why I would use it, which is because I'm completely lazy, and I would just want to get all the hard work done for me. I mean, that's my strategy for using AI is, oh, good, this will do it better for me, and I won't have to think. Yes, I like that. I really like, especially early in the morning when someone says, "Give me a report that's got this." I think retail's one of those things where there's so much more. It's much more. When I first left school, when I was very, very young, and the world was still younger as well, in the 1980s, I worked in a grocery store, and I nearly became an area manager. That's the point at which I resigned from the company because I thought, do I want to be doing this for the rest of my life? And I thought, no, it's not what I want to be doing. But I was always a coder. It's just I needed another job as well for historical reasons. But back in those days, we used to count stock. We had a thing that looked like it was like a brick. I mean, it's the size of a house brick with a wand on it. And that's how it was high tech. You scanned the corner edges, they had little barcodes on, you scanned them, typed in how much you thought you needed in stock. And nowadays, when I look at things like, I remember the loyalty card being introduced. And everybody's got them. I guarantee you've got at least one loyalty card in your wallet or your purse or whatever, somewhere. And the loyalty card is a really good source of data for the retailer because it allows them to run reports, and they could be using Yellowfin to do this. It would be perfect, and say, what is the thing this person buys the most often? And if we offer them a coupon either for a free version of it, so a free bag of coffee or a free, I don't know, sports drink or whatever it is that they obviously buy regularly enough that it's I love this product. They tend to choose one that is not a staple. So they won't give you a free loaf of bread. They won't give you a free bag of sugar, but what they will give you is maybe and this is the United States. I don't know if it's true in the UK, but they'll give you a significant discount on something like a bottle of fresh orange juice, or something that is desirable to you because you obviously buy it regularly enough, you like it, but it's not something boring. It's something that is a little treat for yourself or something that you value. It's not, and you can use something like Yellowfin to extract that data and say, what is it that this person likes? And then you can, introduce a story or table or graph or however you want to do it and say, what's the thing that people love the most? Oh, it's this orange juice that we sell. You know that if you go to the manufacturer of the orange juice and negotiate a deal, we'll buy your whole production for the next week. You can then go and offer that to your customers, and it's something that will encourage them, their loyalty. Yes, it does encourage them to be loyal to the company, but also it makes them spend more because I don't go into a grocery store just to get that bottle of orange juice for free or get a bottle of orange juice for $1 off. I don't know about you, but I end up coming out with, some 7-layer chocolate bar cake or whatever it is. And, I mean, my waistline shows that I am a fool for the special offers, but this is what analytics can do for you, and certainly in the retail sector, it's something that's very, very useful. Now, how do you write a query to extract that information? Not easy, and it might be, even with the NLQ, it might be a challenge with that data as well, because you've got to understand the question to ask in order for you to produce the information. But it's a lot easier to start with something that's assisting you in doing the heavy lifting than it is to go and examine hundreds and hundreds of tables, try and work out, I need this join, inner join that, I need to order this by this, I need to left join that, I need to do it. It's like, I can do it, I'm a coder, but do I want to do it? No, it'll take me hours and hours and hours and hours. But with the querying, AI-backed querying in Yellowfin, it's going to make my life a lot easier. It's actually going to reduce that task down to maybe a few attempts to get it right, because it's difficult. But I can get that information out. And once I've done that, I can save that query and repeat that every time, or have it as some kind of embedded, I mean, you guys know the product better than me, embedded table or chart or something like that, or extract it out to the database and get it to trigger every so often and run every so often. And produce that information. That is the power of business analytics. That's the power of something like Yellowfin, is to enable someone like me to reduce down hours and hours of time down to something repeatable, that once I've got it right with the help of the AI, I've not had to use my brain too much, but I've had to use it a little bit, and then I've got something valuable, which is go to my loyal customers and offer them something they're really interested in, and encourage them to return back to my store and not go to a competing grocery store down the road. And that's what a loyalty card does. It is a direct look into that person, into their soul, and what can we offer them, and get.
There's a couple of things within there, in that, when you're trying to work through and get going with different ideas and concepts, there's a lot that we can do in the back end to make sure that you control. And going back to Rob's point earlier about sometimes there's areas that are a little bit more complex, or you want to make sure are right. And sometimes you've got people at a level in the company who want to push ideas that they're getting. And so how do you control those? Once you've created the report, you can create something with AI. You may want to go through an approval process to make sure that it's still valid, or push it to one of the data analysts in the back end to help validate what you've looked at. And off the back of using AI, or normal self-service analytics, there's still a role for that type of thing, which is quite important. So within Yellowfin, we've got the capability to make sure that you are approved to share your content and to push it out, and to have it validated and checked, which is very important. That is just it's good practice, but also if you're seeing things as you go through, you've got the chance to use stories to look into it. Rob did a really good demo for the 917 launch, which I think we've got a video of it uploaded somewhere to run through here today. Maybe we can put that one in the background. But one of the key things there is it was looking at UK car data at sales. And one of the things that AI is really used for.
Can I just ask, is it the video you gave me earlier on?
Yeah.
Is it that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you can hit play on it at any point. It's fine. It doesn't need to be right now. But one of the things that was really cool on the data is that nowhere in the data does it say what eco-friendly means. And in fact, the question that was asked was specifically around eco-friendly. So this is where the power of AI really comes in. It's actually analyzing the fuel type, and then it's going, I've got petrol, diesel, hybrid. I understand what eco-friendly is because of these terms. And then being able to have the conversation with it, say, right, okay, great, well, show me that. Now show me versus traditional. Now show me with, as a bar chart. Being able to kind of work your way through quickly to get to what you need without having to do all the drag and drop and working in the background. And then you can start that conversation internally around that data to discuss what you're seeing and to actually have that conversation. So from a very, very, very quick few questions, you can start getting to the point you can start making actionable insights. Because the whole point of BI and the whole point of having AI within the BI process is to be able to get actionable insights. That's what turns your data into gold and takes your business forward. So that for me is a fantastic use of AI. But one of the things that was really interesting was, as we were going through and preparing for the live webinar on the launch, Rob got an updated data set and goes, "Oh, you're great! I've got another year's worth of data here," and was asking the same questions. And then all of a sudden was looking at it and going, "Why is there no data for the last year?" And we're able to actually identify that there was a difference in terms of the way the categorization had been done in the data that had been provided. It was exactly the same, apart from they'd capitalized the name. So the data set for the fuel types was all capitalized. But AI was able, we're able, looking at it, we're like, why are we not seeing it? What are the categories for the vehicles this year? And it was able to then show us automatically what was going on. And then a really useful work with the AI then was to say, great, we understand what the issue is now. Can you show us it again, but combining and ignoring case? And it was then, yeah, okay, here it is. Now you got it right. So there's always room for making sure that you've got a chance to review and discuss the data. There was always the chance that some errors are going to be in your data. Inadvertently. This was an external data set that was being pulled in. The government had changed how they put the text in from one year to another. So that's that's the power of making sure you've got all that combined. But again, making sure that nothing moves outside a governed platform, which goes back to all the legislation we spoke about at the top of the hour. But that finding that issue beforehand, we didn't need to be a super administrator. We didn't need to have access to the raw data. We're able to actually use the AI to help us identify it and then raise the question internally, and then share that story with the data team to say, hey, we spotted this. Can you look into this? Can we get that sorted to make the analytics a lot easier to work with in the future?
I think the biggest problem, and I'm going to go to Maria and Montana in a moment, but I think that the biggest problem with AI is that people use the term AI, because I think that if instead, when you're talking about the AI query, you just say, hey, this is a better way of querying your data, people would be more okay with it. They'll just go, oh, okay, so it understands what I'm typing better than it did before. It's like a kind of Uber spell checker, but also a thought checker. It reorganizes it. Like if you ever say, when you're writing with a Microsoft Word or some other word processor, you'll go through and you'll write something out, and then the grammar checker, not the spell checker, but the grammar checker underlines some bits in blue. And you go, oh yeah, actually I have got that word order wrong, or yes, you hover over the blue underline and it's as an alternative way of saying what you've just said that actually is a bit more succinct or a bit more to the point, or actually is a bit clearer. That's really what AI is in this context. It is taking what your intent is and understanding your intent and translating that into the hard facts of, as Rob said, this SQL query, or organizing all the tables together, and also going, there's been a change. This field here is now in capitals, or this table name is in capitals. So it works it out. It gets you. It understands what you actually intended to mean. And I think the trouble is that when you go and say AI, 50% of people are still concerned about AI. You get those people that go, I don't like AI. I don't understand it. I'm sick of hearing about it. I think it's worrying. I think it's a fad. I've heard every kind of suggestion there is, but I think if you stop looking at a feature as an AI feature and actually understand that what it's doing, which is it's helping you make your queries more useful to you, it's kind of like that grammar checker. It's saying, look, I get what you mean here. Here's what I think you meant. here's the data. And yeah, sometimes it's going to misinterpret what you're saying, unless you're very, very clear. But most of the time, it's actually going to get it right. Maria, I want to ask you, Monera, they deal with like end customers. Is that right? You're kind of in the middle between, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know. So here's an opportunity for you to educate me. But Monera are dealing with like ISVs and also end customers. Is that right? The people who are actually using Yellowfin rather than using Yellowfin to embed it and then sell it on. Is that right?
I mean, we have kind of all kind of customers. We support then kind of the customers from Yellowfin in an ongoing engagements as well. We have our own customers using Yellowfin, could be enterprise use cases, could be ISVs. So yes, we help with all the implementations. We help with building content, with setting up like the configurations, and in this case, kind of helping with AI and educating in how it's best used. Because yeah, the NLQ is one of the features, but as well we have others that analyze a little bit more the data. Like tell me about my data. It's another feature,
Yes.
and it
Tell me
goes
about
a
my
little
data.
bit deeper. Yeah. So yes, we try to of course, guide them in the best way that they are going to be using Yellowfin with all the value and all the different features from Yellowfin, because it's more than just building reports and dashboards. So we do try to provide more value on that.
I think that's an important thing as well, is to try and emphasize that there's a lot to this product. When I started getting involved with Yellowfin, and it's only been since January, I think, you know, I've written business analytics products. I've actually worked on, you know, products for big blue chip companies, and Yellowfin is a very good product. And I'm not saying that just because I'm here representing the company at the moment, but I mean that, and I think that anybody looking at my face can tell that I'm genuine. You know, I genuinely think it's a great product, and I think that the thing about it is as well is it's one of these things where you can scratch the surface and go, okay, I understand now, and you've got it, you know, but actually you've missed everything. Because as you mentioned, you know, there's things like the stories and tell me about my data and all those kind of things that are, I mean, my personal favorite is the stories, because I think that it's just a very, what do you do when you're working, you know, in a company and you're trying to, you know, report back to someone? Well, you're going to generate a story. I mean, that's a word for it, but it's a report, or it's a blog, or it's a, you know, with Idea, which is the parent company, we get a weekly kind of roundup of what's going on around the world of the industry that we're working in, and it's by some senior managers, and they put together some info and say, oh, you know, there's this company doing this, and here's how it relates to our company. Stories are a bit like that as well, because I like the fact that the surface is the data and then tells a story about it, and it's a live thing as well. It's not, that's right, isn't it? I'm not wrong there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if you embed anything in it, it's live and it's actionable, and you can see there and then. Whereas if you take a chart in Excel, for example, where you know, marketing as I do, I get a lot of Excel stuff given to me all the time. And by the way, I've convinced them to adopt Yellowfin. More on that another time. But I mean it. I really have said, why are we not using Yellowfin? And I don't know. Let's look into it, and they're going to. So,
But I think sorry, and your point there about the having the data embedded into the stories is a really important one, because it's both the same for that and also presentations. Whenever you get something sent through, you'll see one person's view of it. You may have follow-on questions that you want to ask. So having that live and interactive is really important to be able to follow on and get to that decision that you need. But we've got two ways that you can interact with those charts, or a few ways actually. You can ask it to compare data. You can ask it to explain the data. You know, we have two different models within Yellowfin for explaining content. And Assisted Insights, which was the original one that was, which is still there, and you can run offline. You don't need a connection to an AI engine to do that. That'll do multi-dimensional analysis of the data, and then come back and provide a number of charts and information about the data to help you understand what's going on there. And then taking that and improving it with AI is what Tell Me About My Data is all about. It's like having that that buddy analyst sat alongside you 24/7 to help you understand that data a little bit further and more deeper. So it is really powerful ways to kind of access into the data.
Montana, I mean, I'm aware of the fact you're sitting there looking very Greek philosopher. You've got the look there, you've got the beard, and you've got the, I can just see a statue of you being made right now. Someone out there is going, that's the perfect model for it. You have the hair. I think they'd leave off the glasses, but nowadays that's the model. We've got to have those. But I mean, what's your experience here with AI and things like that? I mean, have you got a personal opinion either way on this, and what you think the benefit is in terms of model selection and stuff like that? I mean, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, I don't care. It's not my field.
Yeah, I think. Well, my opinion is people that are afraid of it need to just kind of get along to move along, because it's not going anywhere, right? And I think, as kind of stated here, it's not really here to step on you as much as is like, if you think of Clippy from like Windows 95, you would start a document out, or maybe it was a Windows XP, but you would start a document.
Oh, you look like you're doing an email. Go away.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I kind of think of it in that sense, where it's kind of like, all right, like here's some scaffolding for what you need, and if you're really stuck, query me, and I'll make that query for you. So I actually think it's a really big help, and I don't think I say don't be afraid of it. But in my experience in Yellowfin, it's been super helpful. And the upcoming release here, I can't say too much about it, but some of the new AI functionality is pretty sweet. I got the demo yesterday. It's really cool. And a little teaser there for everyone. So be on the lookout. It's super good.
And I think this question for everybody really is about, once you get into the good thing about Yellowfin is it doesn't lock you into a particular vendor. There are some people that say, no, you're using Copilot or whatever, Microsoft, and the choice is not yours. It is, you are buying into an ecosystem. It's a bit like Siri, on Apple. Siri's great, and I use it all the time. And in fact, it's lighting up because I keep saying the word Siri. Yep, my phone is lighting up, but it's very useful. I mean, I use it for setting appointments and reminding me about things and stuff like that. Don't get it to drive my life just yet, because I don't trust it. I don't, I know it's going to get it wrong. Occasionally, I've set an alarm for 4 a.m. instead of 4 p.m. That's always fun. But Yellowfin gives us a choice of the models. That's right. And everybody's nodding. Good. So I understand it. And I think the question there is also about the choice of models. I mean, we talked about, Rob mentioned about how the AI will work on the queries and things like that as well. But the choice of models now is really becoming the new currency. It's a bit like choosing a car based on fuel consumption. Are you going to go for an electric car? And Montana, where are you based? You're not in California, are you?
Right now, Idaho, but based out of California, Bay Area.
Yeah. So basically, car fuel, if you even allowed to have anything that isn't electric, is probably, I think I just saw a chart that California is like $7 a gallon or something. Now Brits will go, oh, is that all? Because they sell theirs by the liter and it's 4 times more expensive, 4.5 times more expensive. But your choice of a car depends on how you make it work, and it's the same with these AI models. That picking the right AI model, the fuel for the AI model, are the token costs or the subscription costs. picking the wrong one is expensive. Just the same as if you go, I'm a truck guy or truck girl. I can see Maria driving around in a F-150, all tricked out with long horns on the front and everything, and doing wheelies in the, what do they call donuts? That's it. You do in a truck, isn't it?
Please
Riding
don't
over
mention the word F1 with me around. My son is costing me
oh, yes, of course, you're a kart racer.
I think, I think that
You know.
it's a big point though, because there's different types of queries. If you're doing a question like, show me the top 10 sales items this year, that's a really simple question, and you don't need an expensive model to go and ask that question. Where you're using the explain, and you're saying, right, I've got data here that I really want to, tell me about my data. You might want to have we see a big difference in terms of the response and the output with the newer, more expensive models. You get a much better output. And this option to be able to choose between the models within Yellowfin, which one you want to use for different areas, and that helps control costs a little bit. But you're right, it comes down to making sure you pick the right model and playing with it.
Can I ask a question about that as well? Because I don't know the answer to this. I mean, I'm here as the guy that talks a lot at the beginning and the end of the thing. But in Yellowfin, are you able to swap models on the fly? Can you say, oh, I'm going to use Claude, for example, which is, Claude, and then have Opus 4.5 or 6 or whatever the current one is. I lose track. And that's expensive, okay? The latest Claude model, that is not cheap. It's like 4 times more expensive. Are you able to say at some point, oh, okay, actually, we want to swap mid-month to using Olama, for example, which might be a self-hosted option? Is that possible, or is it stuck? You choose the AI model and then that's the one you're with, or?
I believe you can change. You can choose the model, and then you can definitely choose choose the provider, and then you can change the model. I believe, right, Rob? I'm not 100% on that, but pretty sure.
Well, so there are 2 parts to it. There's the question of provider and model, but your question was about can you do it dynamically, and the answer to that is depends who you are. A business user using the tool, no. An administrator could change it at any time, and you can choose which model you want to use for each of the various kinds of functions. So you can have one model for doing guided natural language query or AI assisted natural language query, and a different model for doing tell me about my data.
That was really where I was getting at.
And that can make sense because one of them's generating code and the other one's writing narrative. So it might well be that you find one works better than the other. And it might also be that one knows more about your industry than another. Not sure about that one. That it will depend on your industry and.
Well, I think Codex and a few others as well are very specialized, but Claude is if you choose Claude Sonnet, for example. Sorry, my dog is saying you should be done with the webinar by now, so give me a dog treat, and that is exactly he's the perfect office and webinar dog. Trust me, he knows exactly how these things work and he gets it. So yeah, I mean, joking aside, that's interesting that you can do that, because Claude Sonnet, for example, even the name kind of implies that it's better at writing things. And that's my experience. I'm doing a lot of stuff with AI, with Embarcadero and the Rad Studio side of things. I have a Mac just at the side of here. This is Mac keyboard attached to my Mac. That is a fairly beefy one. Maria's disappeared. I think she had to go.
Yeah, she just messaged privately. She needs to drop. She's got a
oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I haven't offended her. That's good. So not this week anyway. So. That's running Olama, and the reason for that is that whilst I'm testing some stuff, what I don't want to do is bankrupt myself in the process of going, I've run all these tests, and then you get a bill saying, congratulations, we now own your kidneys or something. But Olama, of course, is all completely free. You download the model and off you go. But you do need a beast that is strong enough to do that. Your laptop's got to be going. And Montana and I were talking about this another time. Okay, well, look, we're at the top of the hour. Thanks, guys, and thanks to Maria in absentia. I know she's disappeared. That's because she's got other things to do. Busy girl. Thanks for your insights as well. Is there any kind of final words? Next time, I think we intend to do some more demos. Is that right, Stephen? I think we're going to actually
I think,
show.
yeah, the next one
Montana's
out
going
is
to
gonna
flash
be,
his stuff. And Rob's going to do his thing as well. So
yeah, it's going to be very much for those new members on your team. If you've got new members on your team, or people who are new into BI, or those who want to kind of get an overview of some more of the common terminology and the language and bits that's used within BI and analytics, then the next session out is really going to be getting into
learning the lingo.
Yeah, learn the lingo. I like that. Let's use learn the lingo.
Yeah, there you
that's
go.
a great working title for it. So.
Yeah. Speak fluent BI. I like it. Yeah. Always sounds a little bit worrying if you change a couple of letters, you start really. That's my job, to do that part of it, and then talking. Yeah, you get it. Yeah, okay, that's good. Well, thanks a lot, guys. We don't really have an agenda, a fixed agenda for this, and sometimes it can be a little bit kind of like participating by watching, which is not ideal. But also, it is valuable that you come along and sometimes what the smaller amount of contribution is the most valuable part of the contribution as well. I think that's the key thing as well. But we will make sure that you get a fairer crack of the whip. What we'll do is we'll mute Stephen, because I can mute him remotely, and mute myself, so that I'll put a timer on it, and then that way you guys get to fight a little bit more and do your thing. But I think with some demos as well, that's interesting.
Cool.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I will close you off for now, and then say goodbye to everybody. But
thanks, everyone.
All right.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We'll be here next time, same time. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, sorry, my dog is bothering me again, so I've got to do this. If you're watching on YouTube, if you click on the subscribe button, you can click on like as well. It does help the algorithm, but we're not influencers. We don't get paid anything, for extra likes. Our bosses are happy if we get more subscriptions. The benefit of you clicking on subscribe on YouTube is that you will not miss anything. And that's important. So if your email goes to spam, or you forget to open it or something like that, what will happen is you'll get an alert from YouTube, and it will tell you that we're here. We don't know who you are. We can't spam you. We can't sneakily convince you to buy our product. I mean, of course, we would do that through the video, but if you find what we're talking about interesting, then you'll get notified of it. So subscribe if you can. Click on that subscribe button. That also works on LinkedIn. That also works on Meta, so Instagram and all the rest of it. Click on subscribe, and you'll get notified when we're going live. Same time every Thursday, live at this time of day, which is 9 a.m. Central, and I think 2 p.m. UTC and 3 p.m. British Summer Time. But wherever you are, it's an hour ago. All right. See you soon. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.